All right, it is time for episode number 71 of the Press Box Podcast, and it's our Super Bowl recap episode. Super Bowl 55 took place just a few nights ago. Buccaneers defeating the Chiefs 31-9. We'll break down the game, talk about what it means for Tom Brady's legacy. Obviously, this is his 10th Super Bowl he's been to. He's won 7. And then we'll wrap it up with a little glimpse into some odds on next year's Super Bowl champion, and then finish up with a few things that are coming down the pike on the sports calendar after the Super Bowl. But before we start the episode, I want to talk about our Twitter account. You can follow us on Twitter at PressBoxPod. Put up a poll question before the game. Do you think anyone else besides Brady or Mahomes will win the MVP? No won heavily, which is what happened. Brady won the MVP. So follow us on Twitter. Tweet out the episode links, poll questions. We like interacting with everybody. I know we've got some new listeners as of late. So make sure you do that, and we will get into this episode of the Press Box Podcast right now.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda. I'll be joined by my other co-host, Joseph Miranda, and our producer, Nathan Miranda, shortly. This is episode number 71 of the Press Box Podcast, if you're keeping a tally at home. And today we're going to talk about the recap of Super Bowl 55. Just completed the Super Bowl. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeated the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9. The Buccaneers becoming Super Bowl champions for the second time in their franchise history, and becoming the first Super Bowl champion in the history of the Super Bowl to play the game in their home stadium. So the Buccaneers with a big win. Recaps or closes, I guess, an NFL season that was unlike any other given the COVID-19 pandemic, with no training camps to speak of, no off-season activities, no preseason games, virtual meetings, teams having to close facilities, games on Wednesday night, games on Tuesday night. But the bottom line is no games were missed. Every game was played. So you had a true champion in the NFL, same as college football, a true champion. So that makes football, again, the premier sport, the only sport that was able to come through this pandemic with a true champion, unlike the NBA and definitely unlike Major League Baseball in this past year. So I will bring in Joseph Miranda. And Joseph, Super Bowl concluded, big win for the Buccaneers. And I'll give you props right off the bat. Not only did you call the winner, but you were almost right on the score.
Yeah, you can go back and listen to the previous episode. I had 31-20,
right.
I believe, and it was 31-9. So I'll take my victory lap for the score.
You definitely, though, I think the over-under you looked up was like 60.
56 and a half.
You definitely were
yeah, definitely under.
You were under that.
Yeah.
I remember saying that I would have been really shocked if it was going to be under 50, 50 or 60 points. So.
I bet you most people thought it'd be over.
Yeah.
First of all, just watching the game, I didn't really like the fact that the Buccaneers were playing at their home stadium. It felt kind of like a Buccaneers home game, like just visually. You could kind of tell it was that stadium. I don't know, but I kind of like it more. It's like a neutral site, and both teams kind of come there and play the Super Bowl. But it wasn't a big deal. I just noticed that right off the bat. But So I'll give Nathan credit. He maybe didn't call the Super Bowl, but he said at some point that Gronk was going to break out. Brady goes to Gronk for 2 touchdowns, just like old times. When really, you might say he had been favoring Brady in terms of tight ends anyway, and then Gronk, the Super Bowl time comes around and he goes right back to him, right? So,
right.
That was big for the Buccaneers, and then their defense played great as well.
Yes, they did.
They have 2. I've always known Levante David was a good linebacker, but this other guy, 45, I keep forgetting his name. I think he went to LSU also, but
I think he did go to LSU.
Yeah.
I'll look his name up.
Okay, but he's emerging as one of the better linebackers in the league, I think, too. So,
Devin White,
yeah. So
with LSU,
yeah, those 2 guys are quite the combo linebacker. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that the Buccaneers weren't the better team based on the way they played there. We all know how powerful the Chiefs' offense is, but they couldn't protect Mahomes the whole night.
No, they really couldn't. I don't think there's anybody out there who would be telling the truth. They would tell you they expected the Chiefs to be held to 9 points.
They didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah, they didn't score a touchdown. Now, part of that was their fault. Okay, I mean, when they were down 14-3, they opted to kick a field goal instead of going for it on fourth down. I think they should have gone for it there. They definitely should have gone for it when they were down 21-6, and they had another opportunity to score a touchdown and didn't go for it. So you got to take advantage of those opportunities. I mean, field goals weren't going to do you any good. You as a coaching staff, you have to see how that game's playing out, and you have to see that it looks like Mahomes is running for his life. We may not get a tremendous amount of opportunities. We're having some trouble stopping them. So even if you don't get the touchdown and you turn the ball over, you really don't lose anything.
Yeah.
If you lose the Super Bowl 31-3, who cares? I mean, you got to take chances. So they didn't do that. I don't disagree that the Buccaneers were the better team. I would have liked to see the Chiefs maybe play at full strength, and what I mean by that is their offensive line was depleted. They had Eric Fisher, their best offensive tackle, was out. I think they had a couple other offensive linemen that were banged up. They had guys playing different positions. And while that's not an excuse, it obviously led to the Buccaneers having the ability to pressure Mahomes. I mean, we never saw Patrick Mahomes running for his life like he did in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He had no time at all. I mean, he would get the ball from center and it'd be like right away, those guys were on him. And then also when he did get the ball off, his receivers didn't do him any justice. I mean, Tyreek Hill dropped 2 or 3 passes. Kelsey dropped some passes. I mean, those guys, they couldn't catch a cold in the Super Bowl. So all in all, it was a perfect storm for the Chiefs, or I guess a negative perfect storm for them in that game. But yeah, the Buccaneers are very deserving. Nathan, as again, good call on the Gronk issue. I mean, you really didn't see it. You didn't hear Godwin or Evans' name much in the Super Bowl. I mean, they caught a few passes, but it was pretty much Gronk. I mean, 6 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Well, yeah, I didn't necessarily know it was going to happen in the Super Bowl. I don't think, but I just remember thinking in the playoffs at one point that one of the playoff games, it seemed like Brady was trying to go to him more than in the regular season. Yeah. They just weren't connecting.
Right.
So I just remember thinking, I said, I
might
think
have been the Saints game.
Yeah, so maybe I thought it was going to happen more in the AFC Championship game, but I thought at some point they were going to start connecting, and he was going to be a bigger factor for Gronk. So I'm glad to see it happen.
I think Kelsey still ended with a pretty typical line, didn't he?
Like 10 catches for 133 yards. I mean, that's a great line, but he dropped. I mean, he dropped 2 or 3, and not that they would have made a tremendous difference in the game, but there was a couple throws in the end zone that his receivers dropped. So it could have been touchdowns.
What do you think about the penalties? I think that they kind of went away from what they'd been in all playoffs. They were a little more quick to throw the flags.
They were,
especially the one pass interference that comes to mind that the Chiefs did basically just tripped and fell forward. And the way he fell, it looked like his arms came down and basically knocked Evans down. But I don't think it was just incidental.
Yeah, and not only that, the ball was pretty much uncatchable, and of course they brought in their referee analyst, that every network has now. But let's face it, those guys are paid by the networks. The networks are paid by the NFL. They're going to side with the officials most of the time, okay? And he said, oh, well, there's no reason why Evans couldn't have reached out and launched himself for that. I mean, give me a break. That was a bad call. There were a couple other penalties that I thought were ticky-tacky, given the way they had called the playoffs up until then. Those penalties made a difference, I thought, early in the game.
I thought it's less about the uncatchable ball and more about the guy just tripped. It was incidental contact,
right?
Like Joseph was saying.
But if it was a catchable ball and a guy's going for the ball, even if you trip, and that's still pass interference.
Yeah,
You're still preventing his ability to catch the ball.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Is there no such thing as incidental contact? That was a call. Is that not a thing?
Yeah, but I think that's more when 2 guys are going up for the ball. Maybe I don't know.
Okay. Because I do understand that you can't try to look at intent, because then every penalty is up for discussion. Yeah, did he intend to hold him? Did he intend to grab his face mask?
Right.
Yeah.
But I did think some other penalties were a little ticky tacky, like you said, like they were a little nitpicky, and I don't think they needed to be called. But I don't think the way the game was going, though, like you said, the way they were pressuring Mahomes,
right.
The way that Brady was clicking on all cylinders, him and Gronk were connecting, the way they were running the ball at Tampa Bay,
right.
I don't think those penalties would have really changed the game. It might have made it closer, a lot closer, maybe. Right. But I don't think it would have changed the outcome.
No,
Fournette had another good game. I remember us talking back in the preseason, like with the Buccaneers collecting running backs, like
Right.
they had Jones, and then they signed Fournette, and then they signed McCoy, who didn't contribute that much, really. But Fournette turned out to be a pretty good pickup for them.
Yes, he did. He kind of
the Jaguars let him go.
reverted back to his 2017 form. When the Jaguars.
I was saying all year, just hand him the ball. I mean, I don't understand. I know the other guy's good, Ronald Jones or whatever, but I think Fournette should be their top running back. I think they need to treat him like that.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and what have I been
saying?
saying?
Showed that in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, what have I been saying all season long about the Chiefs? Their defense is suspect. Okay, I mean their defense is not very good, if you ask me.
Yeah.
They couldn't stop the run very well. And they just don't seem to be a championship type defense. And you can't expect. I mean, and Sunday was the one time when their offense could not match. I mean, they couldn't put up the points.
I know you said the offensive line. Do you think that was basically the sole factor for how they got to Mahomes? I mean, or do you think that was just part of a bigger problem?
No. What do you mean? Part of a bigger problem?
Do you think that was part of a bigger problem for the Chiefs, that they couldn't protect Mahomes for some other reason, or do you think it was all the fact that their offensive line was?
No, I think it was their offensive line.
As a whole factor.
Yeah, I mean, because don't get me wrong. Mahomes has been pressured before, but he's been able to stand in the pocket for a couple seconds. The pressure comes and he rolls out or does whatever. I mean, you watched Sunday. As soon as he got the snap, I mean, it wasn't 1 or 2 seconds. They were on him. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul, Ndamukong Suh.
Because my question during the game was, I was wondering too, how are they getting this much pressure on him? And then I was thinking back to the Giants-Patriots Super Bowl,
right?
And they got similar pressure on Brady, which no one could do all year,
right?
So I'm thinking, do these teams just like people have to know when you play people like Brady, Mahomes, they have to know that they need to be pressured. But is it just that teams usually can't do that, and for whatever reason the Giants could that Super Bowl, the Buccaneers could this Super Bowl, or is it that teams think they can beat them other ways? They don't, or like what is the deal? So if you're saying this Super Bowl was all the offensive line, okay, maybe, but then how does it work in other games? Like when the Giants did that to Brady, did they have a banged up offensive line? Like it seems like at times when teams want to in big games, they can pressure these guys, but then during the season or like seems like teams. Either they don't want to, or they want to, but they can't do it. I don't understand why.
Well, I mean, I think that brings up a whole other discussion. But I do believe that, let's take the Giants, for example. I mean, they were able to pressure Brady with their front four, okay? And if you've got 4 guys, I remember the Giants had the so-called NASCAR package, which means they could put in guys that were rushing from the inside that were actually defensive ends, okay? So they were faster.
Other teams can't do that?
Well, they don't have the personnel. I mean,
I understand that some teams have better personnel, but there had to be a few teams that year, just like a few teams that played the Chiefs this year, that had the ability to rush the passer. Right?
Maybe they weren't as good as the Giants in those situations. Maybe the Giants had a good game. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to debate that. I'm just saying I think the Buccaneers, they did it mostly Sunday because I think the Chiefs' offensive line was bad. Right. I think had the Chiefs had their full offensive line, the Buccaneers would have had to blitz more to pressure Mahomes, okay? And remember, Mahomes is the type of quarterback where if he sets up in the pocket and it's clean and then the pressure comes, he has the ability to roll out. He didn't even have the chance to do that Sunday. I mean, by the time he got the snap and turned around...
Do you think his ankle played? One time he was kind of...
It could have been. It's his foot or whatever it was. It could have been, but...
They said he's having surgery after the season.
He is, yeah. But he made... Let's face it. He made some tremendous throws. I mean, when he was about to be sacked, that were pretty much on target, and his guys just couldn't catch him.
Yeah.
I mean,
one where he was
basically falling down. Yeah.
I mean, that's nice.
No, I know. No, I know. But I mean, my point is, he's a great athlete, and that pass that he was basically falling down could have been caught from his receiver, but he didn't catch it. So
another thing too that I think Nathan pointed out, which everybody could see before halftime, the Chiefs were basically losing their composure, particularly Matthew.
Right.
Like, they needed halftime to kind of think it was all settled down. He was trying to trash talk Brady, which is ridiculous.
I heard after the game, or I heard at one point Brady afterwards texted him to apologize or something for his... Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Supposedly Brady said something to Matthew that couldn't be repeated, supposedly, and I don't know.
How many things were said?
Who knows? I mean, who knows what's said? I mean, you can't argue. That's football. I mean,
I was just bringing that up, but continue.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's another thing that you can kind of tell that, or not tell. It's strange that a team that largely the same team as in the Super Bowl the year before, like the Buccaneers, just had much better composure overall as a team in the Super Bowl. I don't know
they were winning.
Well, that too, but just. They looked like the team that had been there the previous year, not the Chiefs.
I guess what I'm saying is, I guess what I was trying to say was, I know what you mean. They did look like the team that had been there before, And I think a lot of that's Brady. I think he could just kind of imbues a type of confidence in everybody else on the team. You know what I mean? I feel like, and they look to him. I feel like since he's been there,
right,
and he's all calm and composed, so they just kind of it rubs off. But I don't remember last Super Bowl was a close game, went back and forth though, right? Last year, so the Chiefs
it was pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs were behind by 10 late in the game. I mean, in the fourth quarter.
I think the Chiefs, especially this season's Chiefs, aren't used to being behind the 8 ball. No. They're not used to a lot of adversity. So then when things started going bad, like you said, they had penalties go against the way. They were just unraveling. You know what I mean? They definitely Matthew definitely needed halftime to come.
I think your point is well taken, and I think what frustrated
he's going to get ejected if it didn't get. If that was if all this was happening at the start of the first quarter, he would have been ejected. Good. Sorry.
I think what frustrated them the most was that they couldn't do anything on offense. I think they thought, hey, yeah, things aren't going well right now, but our offense is always going to be able to do something. You know what I mean? And they couldn't do anything. And I think that's what frustrated them the most, was that they realized that they weren't going to be able to get it done, and it just affected them.
Yeah. All right, so Brady, 7 Super Bowl wins. He's been to 10 now.
Right. Something
we're never going to see again.
No.
Nobody's going to come close to that.
No, you're never going to see a quarterback go to 10 Super Bowls again. No.
And then,
any player, you're never going to see it.
Yeah.
Because if you're not a quarterback, how are you going to play that long? Kicker, maybe?
Yeah, you're right.
But,
you're right. Yeah, no, you're right.
And, which brings up, which I've seen online and the sports shows now, Brady versus Jordan in the all-time great pantheon, right? So I'm giving the edge to Brady because I think it's harder to get to a Super Bowl than it is to get to the NBA Finals. It's one game. So I mean, if you get to 10, the odds are there's better odds you're going to lose some, right? Jordan lost some finals games, and he didn't lose the finals. It's best 4-7, but
he didn't lose many finals games.
Some, but yeah. And then as Nathan points out, if you're as great as Jordan, you're one of 5 players in the court. Great players can swing basketball games a little more than football, right? You're a quarterback and you have the whole team. You're not even out there on defense. So, yeah, I give the edge to Brady. I think the greatest team sport athlete of all time, I think. Or the accomplishments.
All right.
Well, I would say, first of all, I think there's 2 different things. There's 2 different questions to ask.
Okay.
Is it greatest, like you just kind of qualified at the end there? Are you looking at greatest accomplished player of all time? Just looking at their accomplishments, what they were able to achieve in their sport, the greatest? Or do you look at who was the greatest skill-wise at their sport? Who was the best player? There's 2 different questions. Because when I just hear the greatest of all time, I don't know what does the person mean greatest.
Well, I think we mean accomplishments.
Okay. Well, then I think it's obviously Brady for the reasons you just said. I think there's so many factors that play into it. 1, I think it's a lot tougher to get to the Super Bowl, like you said. 2, everything you just said, basically. I mean, Jordan's great, Brady's great. Okay. Jordan's one of 5 guys. I mean, he has a whole lot more control over the game, Jordan. I mean, anytime he wants to, he'll just keep the ball and not pass it, and he can dominate the game.
Yeah, right.
And then when he does decide to shoot, if he's good, he'll make it, and then they'll get the points. If Brady's on one night, he's good. His receivers still have to catch it. His line still has to block for him. There's so many things that if Jordan's 1-on-1 on a guy, if he's on that night, he's gonna make the shot. There's so many other factors, and then like you said, Brady's not even on defense. It's just so hard. And then playing, it's harder. I feel like it's harder to play football any position except maybe kicker longer than it is it's hard to have longevity in football than basketball.
Yeah.
So the fact that Brady's played this long is extraordinary. The fact that he's gotten to 10, the more I think about it every day after the Super Bowl, the more mind-blowing it is that he's won 7 Super Bowls and he's gotten to 10. Every time I think about it, it becomes more it's unbelievable. I mean,
yeah, listen, but I guess he's been to 1 with Tampa Bay, so really he's been to 9 with the Patriots. So,
are you not counting the Tampa Bay one?
Yeah, that's just
no. Wait a minute. What I'm getting at is, but it wasn't only him that got to the Super Bowl. In other words, the same argument you just used about the fact that there's other guys involved, he hasn't played defense. Same thing applies with the Super Bowl. I mean, Tom Brady's a great quarterback, but those Super Bowls he got to, especially the Patriot ones, were based on the accomplishments of his teammates as well.
Well,
correct?
I think you have to look at that for any given Super Bowl. Like this year's Super Bowl, maybe you can say that. If you look at 1 or 2 Super Bowls, you can say, "Oh, look at that team." But when you look at Brady, I mean, come on. You telling me that he wasn't the deciding factor? I mean, somebody like that who's been to 10 Super Bowls and won 7, and now he's done with 2 different teams. There's something more than just his teams were good. For him to be what are all those teams? What do?
All right. Well,
what do 10 of the last 20 Super Bowl teams have in common? They had Brady on it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a coincidence.
But no, it's not a coincidence. But what I'm saying is like, for example, like take the first Super Bowl they lost to the Giants. Brady took the ball on the last drive and drove it all the way down the field and scored with 2 minutes left in the game. But his defense couldn't close the deal, and the Giants were.
That's why it's tougher to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I understand that, but
Jordan's on the court 24/7.
I understand that, but my point is that same thing could have happened during the regular season. I don't know the Patriots season, but there could have been times when he had driven them down, and yet his defense did close the deal to win the game.
Okay,
and that was those are games that all multiply to get to the playoffs and to get to the Super Bowl.
I get that, and that could account for 1 ring. That could account for 2 rings. That doesn't account for 7 of his rings. That's my point.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying that I don't necessarily disagree, because I think what makes it a more compelling argument for Brady to be the all-time great sport team player or all-time great sport athlete, however you want to couch it, is what he did this year, given what this year was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If this had been a normal year, I think you'd say still would have been great. But the guy went to Tampa. They had no off-season activities. They had no training camp. He had to do everything virtually. No preseason games. They were 7-5 at one point in the season and reeled off, 4 straight victories to close the season, and then a 4-game run. I mean, what he did was absolutely phenomenal, and he changed the culture of that team. I mean, this is basically the same team from last year, was it not?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you had Fournette that you didn't have last year. But that was pretty much it.
Which goes to the whole fact that it's less the team and more Brady.
Yeah, I mean, he changed the culture of that team. There's no question. But I think you got to look at Michael Jordan the same way. I mean, Michael Jordan was able to get more out of the players that he had around him than they would have been able to give without him. And it's the same thing with Brady.
No, the exact same thing applies to both of those guys. There's no question about that. When Jordan retired, the Bulls didn't win the championship.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that that's not there with Jordan. I'm just saying that you can't try to say that's not there with Brady. It's there with both of them.
What I'm saying is, and again, I'm not upset with the fact that Brady's.
So you think it's Jordan though?
I think it's Jordan, but I'm not. But I would be willing to go with Brady. But I mean, Jordan went to 6 NBA finals, won them all, was 6-time MVP of the final. Wait a minute,
5 guys.
Brady won 7, so Jordan won 6, Brady won 7. Okay, Brady went to a few more. Okay, that he lost. Well, my point is, tell me why Jordan's not. I mean, you just told me why Brady is.
Okay. Here's another way to look at it. Look at a lot of the great players. And then, I mean, LeBron. I know LeBron's not
Forget
as good.
about LeBron.
Listen, LeBron is not as good as Jordan.
No,
but he's a great example of any great NBA player can take any team to the championship.
I mean,
it's not that hard.
That's a good point. I mean, Kobe's got 5 titles.
Kobe's got 5.
Okay, he went to 3 or 4 more they didn't win. Now, granted, 6-0 for Jordan is impressive, but Nathan's point is, yeah, a lot of great NBA players is like it's easier to get to the finals.
Look,
like by the time LeBron's probably got 5 or 6 years left, he may win another one.
Yeah.
So, but quarterback 7, and then the next closest is 4.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just distancing himself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and how many have done 4? 2 guys?
Bradshaw and Montana.
Between like Magic, Larry Bird, Bill Russell, certainly, Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, all of these guys have done similar things to Jordan. They've all got to the championships and won many, many championships.
Yeah.
Because when you're a great talent on the court, it's easier to take over the game. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's done over and over again every decade.
Jordan and Brady are very similar in what they do, like we said, but I think you give the edge to Brady because the NFL is a harder league to do it.
It's a harder league to do it. Like Joseph just said, he's distanced himself so much. Not only the 7 wins, but he's gotten to 10. There's guys that won 4, right? Was it Bradshaw, Montana? How many have they got to? Montana just got to 4.
Yeah, right. Bradshaw got to 4.
4. Brady got to 10.
Yeah.
That's amazing. In the Super Bowl, I mean, think about just what's the word? I forget the word now, but how many teams every year in the NBA starts really have a chance to win the NBA Finals? 2,
5 or 6,
5 or 6. In the NFL, it's really kind of. I mean, it's
half the league has a chance.
Half the league. I feel like it's tougher competition. I don't care what everybody says.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I mean,
how do you account for that? That so many people have basically done what Jordan has done. I'm not. Again, this is not to belittle Jordan. We're just talking about the greatest of all time in any sport. That's why it's comparing Brady to Jordan. If we're just talking about basketball, there's no question. But I mean, how do you account for the fact that LeBron, any of these great players, seem to basically replicate what Jordan does?
I guess probably I'll wrap up my comments by saying that I don't disagree with you at all. I'm willing to admit that Brady is, but I think it's difficult to make. Whoever started that discussion, it's unfair because I think it's difficult to take that step. What you just said was great. If you're talking basketball, there's no question. If you're talking football, there's no question. Yeah. I mean, you want to talk baseball, you want to talk golf, doesn't matter. But it's hard to all of a sudden say who comes out of all those sports as the greatest because there's so many things you could talk about. I don't disagree that it's harder to get to the Super Bowl than it is to other. But you got to admit, it's also hard to play 3 postseason series of potentially 7 games to get to the NBA Finals. I mean, that can be a brutal path as well.
That can be tough.
Granted, you don't have to win
easier.
just one.
Right, it's easier.
I understand that.
Easier.
Okay, but I don't disagree because I'm a football guy. But what I'm saying is you can make all sorts of arguments that can point you one way or the other. I don't think it's fair to have to say, do we have one guy that is the all-time?
I would agree with that. But even if you wanted to skirt all those the little minutia of the detail, which there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and just look at the numbers, purely the numbers, it's still Brady. 10-7, 6-6. It's still Brady.
Yeah, that's my closing argument is just the number, like Nathan said.
If you want, I don't think you can just look at the numbers, but if you don't, like you said, it gets into some murky water. But if you do it, here's the way you look at it.
He's doing stuff that nobody's ever done, we'll never see again. Whereas,
how many did Bill Russell win?
I don't know, but 11. LeBron's already been to like 8 finals or whatever. 7, I don't know. Maybe
Bill Russell won 11 championships
with the Celtics. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess you'd have to say he's better than Brady,
whatever.
right?
No,
just look at numbers.
You can't. That's the point. I mean, you can't.
That's what I'm saying. If you just look at numbers, though,
I guess for me,
how did Jordan even come up in it then? If instead of Bill Russell, if you're looking at numbers,
before this season, Brady had won 6 and gotten to 9. And while I considered that very impressive, the thing that really kicked it in the over for me was this year. And not, I mean, because
he won the Belichick Brady argument.
That's right. He won that hands down, right? But my point is just the fact that it's really what's more mind blowing is not so much that he won 7 and got to 10. Think how mind blowing it is what he did this year. I mean, this was a Buccaneer team that hadn't won a playoff game since 2002 and hadn't been to the playoffs since 2008 or 7. Yeah. Okay, and he took this team. And they won a Super Bowl. I mean, that's what's even more amazing.
That's what, and I agree with it. That's what's making me, like you said, it should have been that much less amazing getting to 9 and winning 6 than getting to 10. It's similar. Yeah. But I agree with you. What's really made me think about it more is what he did this year.
No question.
And he's 43.
He's 43.
He's 43. That's true.
Which that's overplayed. Okay, because quarterback's a different position. The guy never gets hit. Okay.
Okay, but how come nobody else is playing to the 43?
Well, Favre played to what, 40?
41.
All right. I mean, I'm sure he could have played a few more, another year. He had some injuries.
He seemed like he was on this last
right.
Okay. He was getting hit a lot.
I'm saying
more.
You can point to.
You can.
That's one guy 10 years ago, but everybody else is
a lot of people,
falling off the wayside. I guess Drew Brees is 41, but he's probably going to retire.
Right.
Brady's coming back next year. He may even come back after that.
Not only is Brees 41, but look at him this season.
Can't throw the ball.
He was just shoving himself. I mean, I agree with that. Now, the whole COVID stuff about it was tough with his first year with the new team, no meetings. I agree with that. That doesn't really make it any... I mean, I think it's great, that aside. You know what I mean? Like, what he did with it this year with this team. That makes it a little better, but every team couldn't have meetings and stuff. It just hurt him more because it was his new team.
Right. Well, I think that's a fact, yeah.
I don't think it was a huge difference with that, but...
So how do you look... So let's talk about going into next season. I mean, obviously we have the free agency of the draft, which will obviously tell a lot of things, but just looking at, you said you had pulled up the odds.
Well, there's the odds to, let's see, the odds to win next year's Super Bowl.
Okay.
Chiefs are still the favorites at 5.5 to 1.
Okay.
Buccaneers are 9 to 1. Packers 9 to 1. Ravens 12 to 1. Bills 12 to 1.
So basically, they just picked all the playoff teams.
I guess as of right now, like, actually, you have to pick those teams. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's not nothing's
bottom feeders are the Lions, Jets, and Texans, all 100 to 1.
That's
so read the top the top couple again there?
Chiefs, Buccaneers, Packers, Ravens, Bills, Rams, 49ers, Saints, Seahawks are 20-1.
All right. The Saints, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think the Saints are going to be.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess you have to go with the Chiefs because
you know the Chiefs are going to be a good team again.
Oh yeah, I mean they're going to have to shore up their defense, but they're going to be a good team.
I mean, so the Buccaneers. But I feel like more things can kind of go wrong with the Buccaneers team than the Chiefs team.
The Patriots got to 3 Super Bowls recently in a row.
Patriots?
Yeah, they did. They got
beat
their.
The Falcons lost to the Eagles and then beat the Rams in a row.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that the Chiefs would be trying to get to 3 in a row, which I guess happened recently.
And they were on the verge of the first one against the Patriots. So they could be. It was just about 4 in a row.
Right.
But before that, I think it was the Bills, right? 4 in a row.
Yes.
So the Patriots
got the 4 in a row. Yeah.
So they'll be trying to make some sort of history, I guess.
And it shows you how hard it is to repeat. I mean, you think about it, the last team to repeat was Patriots, right? 03, 04.
Yeah.
Prior to them, it was the Broncos, 98, 99.
Patriots are 50-1 odds.
50-1 odds, yeah.
Would it surprise anybody if Brady repeats next year?
No, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me a bit. If they bring everybody back, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Your point was good, too, that there's more that could go wrong there, I think.
Yeah. And we don't know, I mean, don't get me wrong, Brady's 43. He's going to be 44 next year. Not that makes a big difference, but at that age, you could fall off. You could hit the wall immediately. I mean, you just don't know.
If Brady wins it next year, I don't even want to hear anybody. I just want it to be an understood fact, just like gravity amongst everyone in the world, that Brady is the greatest athlete of all time. I don't want to hear anything else.
Yeah.
I just want it to be unquestionable. Like when you throw something up, it's going to come down.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But, I guess the thing is, Brady... I think what makes Brady so good, you showed me the clip of him when he was, what was it, junior high school?
I think it was a junior high school.
I think,
that's funny.
You look at guys like Favre was 40, Breeze is 41, so forth and so on. But Jordan, Jordan is the only one I'd put in this category. What I'm about to say, Brady, I think he said this. There's nothing else I really want to do except play football. I mean, and the guy's a multi-millionaire. He could easily retire and do anything he wanted, okay? But the guy wants to play football. And that's the thing that I think that makes him so great, is that he's his age and he wants to compete and get better.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from people who have other interests and want to do other things.
No question.
But it is, I've never thought of this, but I just did now. You don't see, in the offseason, do you really see Brady, doing other things?
You don't really.
You never hear about him.
No.
I don't see him, launching an IPO like Russell Wilson.
Right.
Or trying to get into music, or taking an internship in Hollywood.
Right.
He's just probably just practicing and studying. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that has to be some of the reason why he's been so great.
No question.
Like I said, I'm not taking anything away from people with multiple interests, but those multiple interests are gonna have to take some time away from football.
Right. And that's what makes Brady so great.
Even if it's just takes some of your mental energy away from it.
Right.
I mean, and Brady just he came on the radio sometimes a couple years ago, right? For Monday Night Football games, he would do some.
Yeah, but that was during his suspension, right? Yeah, that was when he was suspended for 4 games.
I think he was just looking for something to do, but
he was in Italy with his family, on the river, or on a yacht or something.
But you don't hear about him doing other. A lot of these other guys, I feel like maybe it's not a lot of them, but I feel like you kind of see them dabbling in other things near the end of their career.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. And the funny thing is, when Brady finally does hang it up, whenever that is, I see him kind of riding off into the sunset. I mean, I don't see him being. I don't see him being a Peyton Manning, where every time you turn around, you see Peyton Manning's face.
That's kind of sour to Peyton Manning. Just because I'm
me too.
I'm just seeing him everywhere.
Everywhere. The guy's everywhere. I mean, you can't turn. I keep waiting to see him on the side of a bus. His picture on the side of a bus.
The reason I don't like that type of stuff for any athlete in any sport is slowly but surely, when you think of them and see them, you start to think of their post career more than their career or something.
Correct. Yeah, that's.
Look at A-Rod.
Just A-Rod's a joke right now. I mean,
if you're a great player, when you're done. If you just go away, no one's going to think of you as anything but a great baseball player, but a great quarterback. I mean, I've said this about A-Rod. It could have happened to Peyton Manning. Kids who are just starting to grow up and kind of be aware of sports right now, when you bring up A-Rod to them 15 years ago, oh, you mean that he's married to J-Lo, that celebrity, that business guy, that businessman? No, the great...
The greatest right-handed hitter of all time.
Right.
That's a discussion for another day.
When someone brings up Babe Ruth to us, right? We weren't... What do we think when we hear Babe Ruth? We didn't watch him play, but you mean possibly the greatest Yankee of all time?
Yeah.
Right.
Because he didn't have a second career as like a mayor of Buffalo or like the...
Well,
I don't...
you make a good point. Look at Barry Sanders. The guy rushed for over 15,000 yards, retired. You'd never hear from him again.
So when you hear
So
Barry
when you
Sanders...
think about Barry Sanders, what do you think about? Great running back.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's an excellent point, Nathan. I never thought of it that way, but the longer people do that, the next generation is going to start thinking of them as their afterlife, not as their football.
And
or sport
even
life.
some of the generation that saw them...
Yeah.
That will start to have equal room in their mind of how they see them. And I don't like that. I don't think they should like that. I know they're making money doing what they're doing. They don't care, probably.
We'll go around here. Like, none of these teams are going to win the Super Bowl, most likely. But if you're placing a bet for some value, $10, $100, all these handful of teams at 40-1 or greater odds, who do you like? Cardinals, Vikings, Raiders, Patriots, Bears, or Eagles?
Read
Cardinals.
Read them again slowly.
Yeah, Cardinals,
Right.
Vikings, Raiders, Patriots, Bears, or Eagles. 40 or 50-1, all those teams.
Cardinals.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
Patriots. And
Patriots.
the reason I'm going to go Patriots is they're going to get a quarterback. One way or another, he's going to get a quarterback. And I think they've got a pretty good team. You know, I mean, I think that's why I put the money. I'm not saying they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a long shot.
Yeah.
I'd say Bears because they made the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
They could get. I don't know.
Look, nothing from
None of those teams are going to win. I think. Yeah.
Well, and I admit my pick was a little more maybe out on a limb than your all's pick because nothing. The Cardinals have not shown anything like they have a Super Bowl caliber team. The Patriots have won mid Super
I
Bowl.
don't know what this means. The Cardinals are 40-1. Bears and Patriots are 50-1. So somebody thinks.
So the better value, I guess, would be but I guess the better value there would be the Bears and the Patriots. But something about a quarterback.
What are the Giants, by the way, just out of curiosity?
200-1.
200-1?
No, they weren't in the last 75-1.
Something about what's that quarterback's name? Arizona.
Kyler Murray.
Something about Kyler Murray, just like, he could just like completely go off. He could be like the MVP one year and like going to run the playoffs. People just like can't stop him. Like, how can you not stop Kyler Murray?
That's
Like,
possible.
He's all over the. I just feel like that could happen anytime. And then,
No, I agree.
I don't know how the defense is, but they were pretty good this year. The team.
Yeah, they were. They were a pretty good team. I mean, I think they have the ability to make a run, given their team. But
no one's gonna be more what's the word? Motivated than Belichick, though.
Oh yeah, Belichick's pissed right now. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. Belichick is he's really upset right now because his legacy got tarnished a little bit. I mean, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, I mean, let's face it. Brady leaves, he goes 7-9 and misses the playoffs. Brady wins the Super Bowl. I mean,
and you could argue that the Patriots, the Bucs were
similar teams.
Yeah. One was not a lot better than that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You know, so yeah, Belichick. Watch out for the Patriots.
He better hope Brady doesn't win anymore because he could. He's never going to talk about it, probably. People could always say, "Oh, this was just a fluke year with Brady." You know, the COVID year. If Brady wins another one, I mean,
well, that's right. And I think what Belichick needs to do is he needs to resign as head coach of the Patriots and go be the general manager of the Giants. I mean, I think that would be great for him. That would be great for New York, right?
Do you think that if he calls the Giants like I want to be the head coach, they fire Joe Judge in the spot?
No, I don't think they would.
So?
I don't think he'd want to be the head coach. I say this though. No, I don't think he would. I think he would want to be the general manager of the Giants though.
I agree with that.
And if he called him and said, "I want to be the general manager," I say, "How soon can you get here?" And I fire Gettle. I do like the Angels in the outfield when the owner walked into Ranch Fowler. Yeah. I'd walk into Gettleman's office and go, "By the way, you're fired."
I think if he told the Giants that he wants to be their head coach, I think they'd go to Judge and ask him if he will step down for however many years, and then we'll bring you right back.
That's not a bet. That's more likely. Yeah, they wouldn't fire him, but they would kind of.
But they would definitely get him out of there. If he didn't want to do it, they'd say, "Well, sorry."
No, I think they would figure out a way to do it. But let me say this though. Before I forget, when we were talking about Super Bowl teams, watch out for the Rams this year. Okay,
yeah.
I mean
they were up there.
They were a good football team, and now they got Matt Stafford and a number one defense. They're going to be good.
Donald got hurt at the worst time.
Yes.
When they needed him the most.
And I really believe that team is going to be, I think they could be the team that challenges the Buccaneers in the NFC next year.
I agree.
Yeah. I also kind of have a feeling there's something about the Rams that this Rams like run here with McVay and the players they have. They got to one Super Bowl, but I feel like they're just kind of. I mean, look back, they're just gonna be like, remember they got to the Super Bowl? Like they're just kind of a fluke team. I feel like, in a way too.
That Super Bowl run is kind of weird looking.
I don't think they have staying power at like the top of the conference. You know what I mean?
Well,
kind of.
It depends on how you define that. I mean, they've been a pretty good football team
I'm
since
not
they
saying
took
they're
over.
good. I'm just saying I don't see. Part of me thinks you're right. They have a lot of pieces. They could get to the Super Bowl anytime. Part of me thinks they're never going to sniff another Super Bowl. That's what I'm saying.
And I think each one is equally possible. Yeah.
And by sniff, I guess I mean I don't know what I mean. Get there.
They won a playoff game this year.
I guess get to the.
They were one game away from the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps up the football season for us. Now we go into the long nuclear winter until football season kicks off again. But we do have lots of sports to talk about coming up on our next few episodes, don't we?
That's right. The Masters are right around the corner again.
The Masters is right around the corner.
First week of April.
Baseball starting.
Yes, we assume on time as right now.
We assume on time, right?
And I mean, I guess technically you have March Madness starting. Which I don't know how
Madness.
much we'll get into that, but I think it's going to happen.
Well,
so that'll be a thing.
It's going to happen, but you guys have heard what they're going to do. They're playing the entire tournament in gymnasiums in and around the Indianapolis area.
Like local gyms?
Yeah.
Well, they're
Like
going to
YMCA?
University type gyms, but small.
Well, as many as they need. I mean, you've got
Right.
Pacers Arena, you've got the Colts Stadium.
They got lots of them.
You've got
You got lots of little universities too.
Indiana's not.
And I think what I've heard is they're going to do a bubble type concept. Like where.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to work.
No, I mean
that
that's
out.
fine. I'm just saying.
But anyway, they're going to play it, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a March Madness to speak of.
So we'll see. And then the NFL, there's always news in the offseason.
Always news. We got the draft coming up. We got free agency coming up, which is going to be interesting.
Did you hear any more how they're going to do the combine?
Last I heard is it's not going to be the traditional combine where everybody comes to Indianapolis. It's going to be more of a regional. They're going to do more pro days. That's where they're going to do the combine stuff, like at each individual school.
They always do that anyways, though. The players that go to the combine also go to the pro day.
They do, but they're eliminating the combine. They're not going to have everybody come to one spot. Okay. Yeah,
it's all going to be on the. You have one chance at the pro day.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I don't know.
But how are they gonna? Isn't the whole thing about pro days though? Is you get different people timing, and you get different equipment. The NFL has standardized measurements and equipment for all their tests.
That's a good point. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how they're going to work that out.
Nathan makes a good point.
The schools are going to cater to their athletes. They want them to put up good time.
I haven't really looked into it, but I find it hard to believe that the NFL won't have their hands on it one way or
Oh,
another.
they will. No, they will. And maybe I used the wrong word of saying they're just going to do the pro day. They may be having more regional things, like, where...
Oh, okay, like maybe the NFL sets up a Southeastern regional combine.
Right.
For those players from that region.
Right.
And then they have that's probably what they do. Yeah. Or that's probably more likely, but I guess they could also NFL could send their own representatives to each team's pro day if we're taking over.
Right. And remember they can do all the height, weight, all that stuff in the Q test or whatever they call it. That can all be done. The testing can be done virtually. You don't have to have anybody right there.
I guess, but I would think the NFL would still want their guys testing height and weight. You see what I'm saying?
No. I mean, but they can send the guys down there to do that.
Yeah.
They don't have to have 100 quarterbacks in one place to do it.
Yeah, well, I think it's likely, like you said, the NFL sets up, instead of having one NFL combine, they have like 10 or 5 NFL combines in different regions.
That's possible. Yeah.
I feel like that's weird.
All right. Well, there's a quick glimpse of what's coming up next in the sports calendar. And as always, tune in to the Press Box Podcast as we bring you those topics and more every week. And that'll do it for this episode. Episode 71, Super Bowl recap, as the Buccaneers are world champions. We'll see you next time.